Welcome to PsychicBent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic. Welcome back, listeners, to PsychicBent. Today, we think we have a really interesting episode that we think you might enjoy. Well, Carrie went to an oracle reading, and I'm sure she's probably going to talk about that at some point in time during this episode. And while she was at this oracle reading, she was struck with the idea of learning or teaching us about the tree of life and connecting with ancestors. So that's what we're going to be doing on this episode, is going over the meaning of the tree of life and how to connect to our ancestors, which I think are amazing topics, and I'm kind of excited about this one. Carrie, would you like to go ahead and start us off on the tree of life?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, we've been talking previously, I wire wrap jewelry, and one of the very first things that I was drawn to make was a tree of life. And I made tree of life pendants with stones or without stones. The majority of them were in copper, but I did make them in silver, sterling silver, if someone wanted a tree of life. And I was very drawn to them. I've even made the tree of life statues, that free-forming trees that stand up. I've been making tree of lives for probably 10 years. It's to me very soothing and calming when I'm making them, even though you're doing a lot of twisting of the wire and everything. I've done a couple classes where I've taught it, and people get so stressed out, and I'm like, how are you so stressed at this? This is so relaxing. And they're like, this is so hard. I'm like, no, it's not. You just let the wire do its thing. And the tree is not perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's just a tree. And I've even done different variations of the tree of life, just as I make them and just kind of see how it goes. And for a tree of life, obviously, tree of life has deep roots that spread out and has branches of the tree that spread out. And normally, when you see a tree of life, it's on a circle, so it's usually going to be round, but it has so many meanings for the tree, and I think it's very important. What Kim was referring to is, I've been dealing with the tree of life for, like I said, 10 years, and I haven't made any recently. It was really funny. I went to this Maker's Mart to get an oracle reading. I saw on Facebook they're going to do oracle readings. Ooh, I'm in. And we've talked about that, Kim and I. It's funny that sometimes it's nice if somebody else do your reading for you.
Yeah.
Let's let someone else play with the cards.
Yeah.
And I like to see how other people do readings, because, I do what resonates with me, when I'm doing a reading. And so other people have their own technique. Spirit works with them differently. And so I always find it interesting to kind of see how she did hers. And she had 7 decks of cards, and she wanted me to pick 4. So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. She's using 7 totally different decks to do this reading, not the same deck. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And some of these decks, I had no idea what they were. I'm like, because, there's hundreds of styles of oracle cards.
Mm-hmm.
You have a standard set of tarot, but you have a gazillion different kinds of oracle cards that you can do, angel cards, romance cards, different kinds of cards.
Mm-hmm.
So she had 7, and I just went with what my intuition said and what spirit led me with. And I'm just like, this, and this, and this. And I was making sure not to touch them.
Yeah.
Because, I don't like people touching my stones, I'm kind of like, okay. And she was funny. She goes, I like how you didn't touch them. She goes, they're okay. They're in the box. You could touch the box. I'm like, I ain't touching your cards. And it was really kind of funny because I think with me not touching the cards, I kind of clued her into that. Maybe I was into a little more than just wanting a card reading, that maybe I was into other things.
Right.
Spiritually. And what she did was a soul reading. And the very first deck, she starts shuffling the cards, and then she turns over, and it was the tree of life.
Cool.
And I was like, all right, okay. I chose well, because that resonated with me. And this card was beautiful. It had like Celtic knots for the coming down the branch, the trunk of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
It was just cool. It was beautiful. And that card basically was about working with your ancestors and using your ancestors in your spiritual growth and with everyday life. And, and Kim and I had been kind of like going back and forth, what's this next episode? Because we got a couple ideas we've been researching, but they just didn't seem like the right time. And I mean, I'm like calling Kim, I got the next episode. Real life ancestors. Because those are, I mean, great topics that we've not covered.
Yeah.
And they're so right there.
Right.
So, yeah, so we both got excited on that one.
Yeah. And with getting you off topic there just a little bit, the tree of life is known in every belief, has a tree of life in one way or another.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead with your story.
Yeah, that's fine. So that's kind of how this episode came to be. I recorded the reading, and it didn't take. It was just garbled. So I guess the only thing I was supposed to take away from the reading was the tree of life, connecting with my ancestors. But so I mean, it was a good reading. Don't get me wrong, but it was entertaining for me too, because it was funny watching her try to figure out. She threw out little terms like, "Are you familiar with tarot?" Yeah, I am. Okay, well, this is like the pinnacle cards, and I'm like, "Oh, the pinnacle suit." And I'm like, "Okay," and then she's like, throw something else out at me, and are you familiar with this? Yeah, I'm familiar with that. And so she just couldn't figure it out. It's driving her crazy, and that's how Carrie gets her kicks. Like, okay, let's see if she'll ask. Then she recommended a store in Asheville she thought I could check out, and she kind of like looked to see how I would respond to it. And I'm like, oh, I'm always down for a spirit shop,
Yep.
Whatever, So that leads us to the Tree of Life. A lot of people do wear it as an amulet. The pendant's very popular. It hasn't diminished in popularity. I mean, obviously, over the last 10 years, I think it's actually grown in popularity, but I think it's because people have a better idea of what it is. The Tree of Life is a sacred symbol. It's important meaning in both religious and spiritual philosophy. A lot of people promote gold and silver, but I mean, copper can be used as well. I like copper because I don't put a finish on my copper, so as it gets a patina, it looks like a tree.
Oh, yeah.
You get that nice patina. It looks very warm to me, and it's very soothing to me, but that's just how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the tree of life is usually, like I said, depicted as a large tree with spreading branches and roots that extend up and down, and like I said, usually in a circle form. It's associated with family, religion, philosophy, and spirituality, and it can be traced back to ancient cultures. The tree of life has been in existence as long as humans have been. It's inspiring, grounding, soothing as a symbol, and you can see why it's so popular.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, for the deep meaning of a tree of life, you've got calm and tranquility. You have individuality. You have family and fertility. You have stability. You have interconnectivity. You have strength, revival, and growth. And I did not give those in any particular order.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, it wasn't in particular order. So like family and fertility, the tree of life symbol represents the connection with family and ancestors. And the symbol is an intricate web of branches that represents how the family grows and expands over many generations. It also can symbolize fertility as the tree continues to grow. So it comes from a small seed and becomes strong, lush, and green, which means it's vitality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The interconnection of everything in the world, or interconnectivity, the tree of life represents how everything is interconnected. We do not exist in a vacuum, but are connected with the outside world. So the symbol of the tree enclosed in a circle represents the world. And the tree represents life in this world. This amulet symbolizes unity and serves as a reminder that you are never alone or isolated, but connected to the world. The roots of the tree go deep in the earth, taking food from Mother Earth, and its branches go to the sky, taking energy from the sun and the moon. So for stability, strength, and growth, the tree is a symbol of stability and strength. The metaphor of a tree rooted deep in the ground speaks of strength, stability, and earthiness. And it also symbolizes growth, as the branchy crown of the tree is the result of years of slow growth from a vulnerable seedling to a sturdy tree. And then individuality. Each tree is unique and unrepeatable, In the beginning, all trees look the same, but as they grow, each tree becomes unique and no two trees are alike. Over time, trees acquire their character and beauty, withstanding all the sorts of tests of the elements to become even stronger and stronger, just like we are. We are all different, like the trees are. And so the symbol of the tree of life will always remind us of this, that we are different and we are like trees and we are strong and we are survivors.
Do you think that through the different types of practices that the tree of life has different meanings other than what your...
Yes, it does. And I do have some
Okay,
examples
cool.
of those. So revival is when a tree loses its leaves and appears dead in the wintertime. But when conditions become more favorable, like spring, the tree comes back to life. So after it loses its leaves, it gets its leaves back, which tells us that the tree of life is symbolizing rebirth and overcoming difficult times. Calm and tranquility. Being under the crown of a large tree, there's a feeling of the power of nature. There's peace. It's relaxing. And there's no other place that you can receive such energy as from a tree. And the tree is always calm and peaceful. Quietly and slowly growing, it becomes stronger and gives life, serves as a shelter and food for wild animals and birds. So since the symbol of the tree of life is found in many cultures and means almost the same thing, anyone can wear it as a talisman. You do not think it's found only in ancient pagan cultures. It's found in Christianity and some other religions. I think Kim's going to take a deep dive into that when I'm done. It can protect his owners and help overcome a difficult situation. The tree of life is universal in everything. Its energy is compatible with both male and female, the energy of an adult and the energy of a child. Therefore, any age can wear it. You can wear your amulet as a symbol of the family for its well-being. You can keep peace and tranquility in the house and protect from evil forces by having the amulet on the wall. You can serve, it's supposed to be good for pregnant women, symbolizing the beginning of a new life, and to help protect the child and mother from evil and give her maternal wisdom. And the history of the tree of life, its symbol, like I said earlier, is very ancient. The tree of life has been represented in Christianity, ancient Egypt, as well as Buddhist, African, Turkish, and Celtic cultures. These systems of culture and theology reflect multicultural ideas that are unifying strains. Namely, the tree of life commonly symbolizes the connection to the afterlife, ancestral roots, and divinity. Now, Kim, do you have anything on the cultic cultures?
I do. To go along with your mentioning of Christianity, that tree of life holds the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. So that's where the tree of life is first mentioned in the Bible. And the tree sits at the center of the garden and holds the one and only rule: don't eat the fruit from the tree. So in Christians' belief, Adam and Eve were in the garden and they were given one rule: just not to eat the fruit. And she was coaxed. Well, the tree was often also referred to as the tree of good and evil, and Eve was coaxed into eating from that tree. So once she convinced Adam to eat from the tree too, that was it. They were cast out because they weren't supposed to have the wisdom and knowledge from the tree of life. So that's how it is in Christianity. That's their belief. That's where the tree of life is. In the Celtic culture, the tree of life represents the afterlife and familial connections, and it is an ancient symbol used by the Celts, as Carrie mentions. It's believed that this design mirrors the connection between heaven and earth, showcasing a passage for deceased ancestors to cross. And because of this, the tree of life is sacred in the Celtic culture and can be seen in tapestries, paintings, and statues throughout that belief system, especially in Ireland. And they believe that the trees are reincarnations of past loved ones. I thought that was interesting.
Yes, it is.
And in Egypt, the tree of life symbolizes abundance. So in this culture, it views the tree of life as a bridge to heavens. So it's kind of similar in the beliefs, like you had said, with just a twist. And when the branches soar to the sky, to the gods, the roots sink down into the earth towards death. So, according to Egyptian mythology, after the world was created, the god of earth and goddesses of the sky had sons named Osiris and Set. After a sibling rivalry, Set tricked Osiris into getting into a coffin made from a tree. In Egyptian art, the tree of life is often represented by a tree with numerous branches, leaves, and fruit. And in the African culture, the tree produces fruit all year round, even in the driest conditions. Because of this, the tree of life is worshipped as a resilient symbol believed to bring peace and nourishment. And African myths go to the baobab tree. I'm sure I mispronounced that. I'm truly sorry. Trees look like their roots are in the air because God changed his mind when planting trees and decided to turn some upside down. These trees really do look like they've been flipped upside down. In Buddhism, the tree of life is a symbol of enlightenment, and it's believed that Buddha reached his spiritual awakening under a sacred Bodhi tree. Because of this, trees are sacred symbols in Buddhist culture representing existence and enlightenment. Similarly, the tree of life is often used to describe the concept of tree roots. The three objects of Buddhist devotion make up the tree roots: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And in Hinduism, the tree of life represents the chakras. So chakras are the body's energy centers, as we all know, and it's believed that everyone has 7 chakras stemming from their pelvic floor to the crown of their head. In some Hindu teachings, the tree of life is used to describe the locations of the chakras, helping people visualize their connection to the spiritual and physical worlds. In Hindu mythology, the tree of life represents Indra, the ruler of the heavens. In the Jewish mysticism, the tree of life shows a connection to the universe. A tree of life-like diagram is used in Kabbalah, a specific school of thought in Jewish mysticism, to represent how and why events manifest in someone's life. So unlike the traditional tree of life design, the Kabbalah tree of life has 11 nodes or circles of different colors connected by pillars or columns, and the nodes represent deities, angels, and celestial bodies, while the columns signify energy. It's believed that if one were to follow the flow of the tree, they'll achieve higher awareness and grow into their divine power. And similarly, in sacred geometry, the tree of life mirrors the theorized structure or diagrammatic representation of the universe. So I thought that was really interesting, tying in the sacred geometry into the
Yes,
tree of life.
very interesting.
There's others you can do research on to find out what the different other cultures' beliefs are with the tree of life or what it represents to them. I just found it very, very fascinating.
It is. You know, when I had gotten this oracle card reading, she was kind of like, oh, the tree of life. She goes, if you have Irish or Scottish ancestors, this card's telling you that you need to connect with those ancestors. And I'm like, okay, I've got both. So it's like, guess you,
I have
uh,
plenty of those.
yes. And when you think about working with your ancestors, she's telling me to work with ancestors that are not like great grandma. She's talking about farther back, reconnecting with those ancestors. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't know them.
Well, true. And they may not be DNA blood related ancestors either. They may be others that had impacted and influenced your life that you aren't necessarily blood related to.
Well, one of the things I came across in research, and because just a lot of information, by the way, guys, on connecting with your ancestors. Kind of like, which way do you go? Did you run into that, Kim?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the articles I came across, and it resonated with me basically because of Mom. Because it had said one way to connect with your ancestors is to know your genealogy and to know
Mm.
your ancestors of the past. Mom had taken us all the way back to what, 500 AD in Scotland,
Something like that, yeah.
or 400. It was the 4 to 500 AD in Scotland. And so when she's telling me this, so where my mind went. We have a history in Scotland that made us become Scot-Irish, because if you're Scot-Irish, that means that you were from Scotland but had to go to Ireland. That you no longer lived in Scotland. You gave up your rights in Scotland and now you're in Ireland, so you became Scot-Irish.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. I've gone through the book periodically. Have you gone through the book Mom put together for us? It's more than one book. She worked on this. She worked on this for decades.
Yeah, yeah,
Decades.
decades. I have looked through them off and on, not sat there and just studied them, but
Yeah.
I've been through them.
Okay. So, there was so much information in these books that Mom compiled. So she did Dad's side of the family. She did her side of the family. And the thing with genealogy, I don't know if any of our listeners have delved into it, it's like the tree. It keeps
Yeah.
branching off. And, and it's easy to get lost while doing genealogy work, because you're going to start on your mother's line. And so you look at her father and his family and go that way. And then you look at her mother and her family and you go that way, and then you have families that married brothers and sisters from the next door neighbor. And now you got all these names, and it can, and then you have, when people come to the United States, immigration times would change their name
Mm-hmm.
or change the spelling. So you had a lot of things that would make it tedious. And after a certain time period, the wives' last names were never used.
True.
And even if you try to do research on Anne Boleyn or Mary Boleyn, that no one knows who's the older or younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
There's speculations. No one really knows the exact date of birth because they were girls.
Right.
When they married, they became that person's wife, and you had a terrible time trying to unlock some of those. Let's go to Scotland, Kim, in the year 1437,
Okay.
February to be exact. Now, King James was the King of Scotland during this period. He had several attempts made against him, and I think any monarch of that time period probably did. He and the Queen were staying at the Blackfriars Monastery, I believe, and there was attack. Someone in the group let people in with the intent to kill the king.
Right.
So King James wasn't going to give up without a fight. First, one or two of the armed troops that were sent to kill him. So to get away, he descended into the sewer of the monastery. And of course, the sewer is not very pleasant.
No.
And he kind of got stuck in the sewer because he had no way to get out. So Robert Graham joined the king in the sewer, and he's the one who led the assault. And according to all accounts, Robert Graham killed King James.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Graham is the reason our family had to leave Scotland, because he is one of our ancestors.
Lovely.
I'm like, couldn't you have found something good, Mom? But he had siblings, he had a wife, he had children, so it's not, he was just, everybody gets passionate about politics at some point in their life, I guess, and that's what happened there. But we don't have a lot of documentation. I mean, yeah, it's on several Scottish websites. That was an interesting spin, but when she said ancestors, that's where my mind went with, oh, we were in Scotland for a while.
Yeah.
That's where we started. Then we went to Ireland. So that's when I came across the one article that said research your ancestors. I'm like, oh, that's already done.
Yeah.
I need to go back and read some more. And when Mom transitioned, I kind of went home after she died at home, and so after she was taken from the home, and Dad was okay, then I went back to my house, and I just sat there and I thought, I'm gonna get that I just wanted to look at the genealogy book because that so much of her was in those
Oh,
books.
yeah.
I just got them out and piled them on the dining room table. And I just sat there, and it was just kind of like a be a mom moment. But when that oracle card came through with the tree of life and the Celtic design going down the roots, and then she said, get in touch with your ancestors. That for me was getting in touch with those ancestors. Now and there's different ways of connecting with ancestors, not just your own, like Kim was saying. But for me, that card was personal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I hope they don't want me to get in touch with Robert Graham. And this was on mom's side of the family.
Right. Interesting.
Yes. Long story short, he was executed, and his relatives, as in the case of the Earl of Athol, that was the downfall of that family. And, that family had to leave. And the moral of the story is don't hide in a sewer.
That's right. Don't go to the sewers.
And it was Sir Robert Graham. So if you want to Google Sir Robert Graham and King James of Scotland, and it was King James the First, in case you're curious.
Of course.
You two might be related. But yeah, so that's what came into me. So you want to talk to us, Kim, kind of a little bit more. I kind of took us down a little rabbit hole on my own personal, what I feel I'm being led to because of what the tree looked like and my oracle reading. So Kim, tell us some different ways or what you have on connecting with your ancestors.
Okay. Well, like I had alluded to a little bit ago, ancestors may not necessarily just be your blood relatives. They could be your adoptive relatives. They could be someone that has had a major impact in your life at some point in time. And I also wonder if we're also talking about the ancient ancestors of our past lives as well, because they could be different than the ancestors of our parental lineage.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, it just could go so many different ways because you have so many different types of ancestors that have transitioned before you many centuries over.
Oh, yeah. You really don't think about it like that.
Right.
Okay, so I'm coming back to do my next life contract. Well, you may have different parents. It may not be the same parents you had in previous life because they fulfilled their contract and they moved on.
Yeah, exactly.
There's that darn tree sprouting.
I know, just sprouting its little limbs, producing those little fruit. With the research that I did, I found there were ways that you can work on connecting with the ancestors. It gives you an opportunity to actually speak with them and receive guidance and a better understanding of ourselves, and also be able to heal that ancestral trauma that may exist in you, within you, and within your higher self. And that spiritual guidance is always something that we could all use help with throughout our life. And the best way to do that is to actually connect with these ancestors to get their knowledge and their help in understanding, because they've already lived the human experience. They've already been here, did their thing, and they know. They all know. So one day we will know too, everything that we went through. So
Yeah.
so there's different possible ways to connect with the spiritual realm, to connect with the ancestors. And some of the tools are ones that we've talked about, probably beat with a stick, because we've talked about them so much. Journaling and meditation are good ways to begin accessing the spiritual realm. You can do this through dream work as well, creating an altar, through art, through dance, exercises that quiet your mind, spending time in nature. It's also, some recommend eating a plant-based diet and using and consuming herbs through teas and tinctures, herbal baths. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Tinctures?
Yes, tinctures.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
I question it sometimes when I see it.
Yeah. That's a hard one to say.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't you think mindfulness would also be a key thing here? You're focusing on the ancestors. What ancestors do I need to help me, or bringing that mindfulness? So if you're not good at meditation, that form of mindfulness as meditation. Do you think that would work in this instance as well?
Sure, that could work as well. So the first thing is to do your meditations, but before you begin connecting with the ancestors, you want to practice getting to know your spiritual self. And before you begin invoking the ancestors, that's where you're calling upon them, you need to learn what it feels like to connect with your own spiritual energy. And the more spiritual work you do, the more comfortable you become with that and with the feelings and sensations that also come with it. I imagine it could be an extremely emotional experience whenever you are connecting with some of the actual ancestors that when you connect. One of the best ways to do it is through meditation. Guided higher self meditations are a great place to start in your meditations, and find the meditation technique that works best for you. We talk about that all the time, and you can then use meditation to connect with the ancestors. And then you're going to create a dialogue. So journaling is an important part of the spiritual work. It allows you to keep track of your intentions, because that's what you're going to be doing as well, is setting intentions. It helps you keep track of discoveries that you've come up with and the manifestations that you're going to make. You can also use this journal to record your dreams, especially if you're going to be doing the dream work to connect with your ancestors. Keeping a journal shows your ancestors that you are ready to work with them and you take their guidance seriously. It also serves as a simple gesture to begin nurturing a lasting bond between you and those ancestors. You'll be able to refer back to the journal at times when you forget that the ancestors are there to always help you and support you. You go back and read how they've given you the messages and what those messages are. It really strengthens that connection between you and those ancestors. And so once you've got those things established, that you're doing your meditation, you're going to be journaling, and you've got it ready to go, you want to create that sacred space that we talk about all the time. An altar is a sacred space that connects you to the spiritual realms and the realm of the ancestors. Because as we've talked before, everything's on different realms and different dimensions. And to create an altar, you simply need a dedicated space in your home where you can keep your altar items. And this can be something more permanent, like a small table, or if you're tight on space, a drawer or a cabinet can also work. Create an ancestor altar by adding just a few items to that designated area or space. An altar cloth is a piece of fabric that the other items will be placed on. You want to have candles, flowers, a glass of water, maybe a photo of an ancestor, and a momentum from an ancestor or something you think an ancestor would like. And now that you have your journal and your ancestor altar space together, the next step is to invoke your ancestors. And I know that sounds like kind of a harsh word, but it's not. Sitting quietly or laying down, relax your body, and take a few breaths and clear your mind. And with your eyes closed, set the intention to connect with only a handful of your ancestors. You don't want to, bring them all in, because you're going to get overwhelmed.
Shake that tree.
Yeah. You don't want to be doing that.
I mean, I would think one ancestor that you would know.
Yeah.
So you know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you could start calling in more.
Right.
Because, I mean, once you do it with one, they're going to be lighting up.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to get comfortable, you get some validation who it is.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be easier to have a memento of a grandmother, mother, whatever, who you want to work with. And then once you get to down that feeling, then you kind of instinctively put onto the altar what you feel, what you want to attract the next ancestor.
Right, yeah. And you want to make certain that the ancestor you are wanting to connect with has your highest good in mind. That it's not going to be somebody that was not a nice person.
It's not going to be Sir Robert.
Yeah.
It's not going to be Sir Robert.
Right. You want someone that is going to work well with you and only think of your highest good. You don't want someone that's going to dirty your water or whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's where doing your protective practices before starting, like you said, it's very important
Mm-hmm.
because that way your spirit team is not going to allow just any ancestor to wander in or a trickster to come wander.
Mm-hmm. So you want to take a few deep breaths and notice any physical sensations you may feel. Sometimes you may notice a shift in body temperature or a tingling sensation in a particular part of your body or behind your closed eyes. You may see colors, images, shapes. I do that a lot whenever I'm meditating. I see a lot of colors and shapes and stuff like that. This,
Yeah,
yeah.
I do too.
This is a good time to speak your intentions aloud. An example of that is on this day, I, Kim, wish to connect with the ancestor that can provide the most guidance to me at this point in my life. And if you know the ancestor's name you'd like to contact with, you can state their name instead. Then, while in that relaxed state, just simply observe your sensations that you're feeling and take as much time as you need to allow feelings, images, sensations to come. You're going to make documentations of those. So when you're ready to open your eyes, you just write down anything and everything you experienced. And if nothing came to you, don't worry. Just repeat the exercise. Pay attention. It'll event because you have to build this relationship is what you're doing.
And with anything takes practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the more you do it, the more confident you're going to become. I wonder if automatic writing would work with this too. I'm like, my mind's like going all these different ways. Like, oh, I could try automatic writing.
I'm sure it could, as long as you're setting your intentions that what is you're wanting to know or needing help with or the guidance that you're searching for. Yeah, why not? Not everybody can just remember the flashes in their mind's eye. That may not be
Right.
their tool. So, yeah, I could see where that would be a tool used to help you with the communication there. Yeah, makes sense.
Yay.
Yay! So, after you've made that connection and you're ready to finish, you do need to thank your ancestors that have come to help you. And you also, which I forgot to mention earlier, you are calling upon your spirit guides and such to help guide you as well. But you're going to thank your ancestors and the spirit guides and the others that you have called to help you with this communication process once you're finished.
I think any spiritual work you do, you should always thank
Yes,
whoever's helping you or whoever you're calling on. You should always have a grateful heart and be thankful.
definitely. Oh, and I forgot to also say thank you to your angels because they're bringing their work too. So I'll click
Oh,
them
that's
off one
part
at
of
a
your
time.
spirit team.
Yeah,
It's your spirit team. I think you can cover spirit team and you're good.
exactly. One other thing that you can do while you're in this process of setting up your sacred space and you're setting your intentions and your journal's ready to go, you've written your intentions in your journal and you're doing your meditation, you can also play or have in the background music playing because that helps to raise vibrations as well. And your ancestors and spirit guides and everything are on such a higher level. You want to raise your levels up as well, and music helps to do that. So you can do mantras like your ohms that Carrie has talked about in other episodes. Music, you can do the spirit bowls. Nope, that's not spirit bowls.
The crystal bowls,
The
the singing bowls,
singing bowls. There we go. Yeah,
the
thank
singing
you. The
bowls,
singing bowls.
the salad bowl.
Yeah, toss that salad. It'll work.
Sorry. Like the singing bowls. Those are beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
And they do raise your
They
vibration. Oh,
do. That makes it easier when you raise your vibration up as high as you can. It makes it easier for them because they're on such a higher vibration level to come down to us than it is for us. You know what I'm saying? We can reach as high as we can with our vibrations to meet them.
yeah.
It's that give and take thing, you know.
Yes.
And then once you've finished with closed your ceremony, you've thanked your ancestors, then there's a celebration time at that point in time or a reflection where you just take a moment to yourselves or with family even and share, if it's something that you want to share with family or whatever, the connections that you made and the experience that you had. And it's kind of fun, really interesting.
In some beliefs, they actually do a silent dinner where you set a place at the table
Mm-hmm.
for the ancestor, and you have a dinner, no one talks, and you actually put food on the plate. People eat, and then that plate, after dinner is finished, then the plate goes outside and it feeds the animals outside or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just kind of a try it and a way to connect with that ancestor.
Right. Sounds really neat. A real connection you can make with your ancestors. So, what else do you have on ancestors?
Well, I think we about covered it, don't you?
Sure.
Because, like I said, I mean, we can't go into all the different ways to connect with ancestors because I found also that different nationalities had different beliefs on how to connect with your ancestors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you might have to find what works for you, what resonates with you. We always talk about what resonates, but there's different nationalities have different ways of connecting with ancestors. And I went through some of those and I found those kind of interesting as well. And they transcend. It's just a different culture and how they do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I always find things like that interesting. So, it's one of those things we have to do a little more research and see, because we can't go into every single way.
Right. Right.
We don't have enough time.
Yeah, yeah, we don't have enough time. That's so true. To put a little more idea into how some people, other cultures celebrate their ancestors, we can go into the Halloween and the Day of the Dead celebrations,
Right.
All Hallows
Yes.
Eve and such. That's what we're talking about, how other cultures can celebrate their ancestors. The Day of the Dead in Mexico, they have spiritual essence ceremony honoring, communicating all during the Day of the Dead, and Old Hallows Eve, Holy Night, All Saints Night. There's so many different names, and that's all they're doing is celebrating their ancestors that have come before them and communicating with them as well. As you said, having ceremonies. Those are examples of what Carrie was talking about, that there's so much more and so many other traditions that are done to
Yeah.
celebrate the ancestors.
And different practices and beliefs have different ways of connecting with ancestors as well. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to go away. I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna let Kim do a lot more talking on this than me because I've gone like three different routes,
Yeah.
and I kind of took away what resonating with me, and hopefully that what Kim and I came up with do help some listeners connect with their ancestors. But I think it's very exciting to do this practice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but you could connect with the ancestor, the 100-year-old ancestor, obviously someone you never met, but have so much wisdom.
Mm, exactly.
And if you were to connect with, this 100 years ago ancestor that was a psychic
Mm-hmm.
or a seer or had this knowledge that could benefit you or help you or help heal something in you that needs to be healed, I mean, that's huge.
Oh, definitely. And I wonder if one of the things that you could do is a relative that from history, from family tree or whatever, and communicate with them about what they may have a need for healing that you could help them with.
True, yeah. Well, you've got 4 books to choose from if you want to go that route, Kim. Yeah,
That's true.
yeah. Some books are thicker than others, but yes,
Yeah, yes, they are. Yes.
yeah,
It's really fascinating to think about.
yes. And I think that it's a great exercise and a good practice. I mean, at this rate, I'm going to have more than 3 altars in my room. Okay, move the bed out. We need another altar.
Yes. Oh, that's so true.
But I like the idea that you said that I never thought about putting an altar in a drawer because
Yeah.
I'm not gonna light candles in the drawer, but you'd open the drawer up. It's still I wouldn't do candles, but
Hmm.
that's where you can keep something very protected.
Right. You can.
You can pull the drawer out and when you're if you want to burn candles.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Or you can put it on top of a little tray in the drawer, and when you're ready, pull it out and put it on top of the drawer, going lengthwise.
Yeah, I'm not that graceful.
Okay. Me neither.
That's a
I
great
shouldn't act like
idea, but I know what would happen.
I shouldn't act like I'm graceful. So,
I would tilt the tray to get it out of the lift it out of the drawer, and everything would fall off. And
yep.
thus I'll just pull the drawer out and still probably knock it all over. But I thought that was interesting.
I did too. I hadn't thought about a drawer, but then we thought about the crystal grids going in a cubby hole in your desk. So let's go there.
Why not? Why not?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Kim, do you have anything else you'd like to add to the Tree of Life or Connecting with Your Ancestors segment?
No, it was just really interesting research. A lot of
Yeah, I thought
research.
that.
I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
information. I shouldn't say a lot of
there
research.
is.
It was,
Yeah, there is a lot of information out there, and just kind of trying to compile. And of course, I was being more drawn to the Celtic Tree of Life and the Celtic ancestral. So it was nice to have a different spin on it too. That well, you could also do this.
yeah,
So that worked out great because I mean, mine was a personal path.
definitely,
Because
because you've always been doing those tree of lives, and I
yeah,
didn't know what drew you to do that. Were you just drawn to it?
I've been drawn to them. Yeah, and I can make a tree of life without putting beads on it, of course, like a regular just tree of life without stones. But I could do it while talking to people, and
Mm-hmm.
just it's like how you do it when you crochet.
Yeah,
You could
yeah,
you'd be crocheting away. You're an automatic pilot, and
yeah.
just talking and talking to people. And I'm like, Kim, I can't hear you because I'm watching you crochet. It's like, you're gonna have to stop because I can't hear you because I'm distracted. But I do the same thing with making the tree.
Yeah, I get it.
Because when I work with wire, it's all intuitive. I twist that trunk until I feel it. Okay, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be stop here, and then just go from there. And for doing it for 10 years, I yeah, guess I should have connected those dots sooner. but but maybe I wasn't
But
ready.
I could see that because I know how it is when I'm crocheting. I do the mindful stuff. I
Hmm.
am having
Hmm.
the internal dialogue. So I know that's what you're going through. You're doing the
Oh
exact
yeah,
same thing with that. You're having your
and
a spiritual
it's a
moment.
yeah, it's type of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do those at craft shows, and it just seems like whichever one I put on the table, someone walks up and say, I want that one because they saw me make it. I didn't know they were standing there watching from I mean, they weren't standing at the table. They were watching from a distance. I've had a lot of crafters buy stuff. I just, making the tree and it's different,
Yeah.
because I don't sit still very well. I like to create something. And I think that raises my vibration, which helps my sales
Mm-hmm. Right.
because I'm able to connect with my customers better. And then it also draws in those who might need a little psychic reading,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a way of keeping my vibration high when I'm around a lot of people. But I'll do one, set it on the table, and I don't know how many people said, oh, that'd make a great earring display holder. I'm like, yeah, it's a tree of life. Okay.
I kind of liken it to also that it's like a booster charge. You've got your charging box
Copper.
hooked onto you while you're doing that, and it's just recharging your
Hmm.
batteries and energy to get you through
Yes.
the rest of the day at the craft fair.
Yeah.
Because you have
And
to,
I make them out of copper.
yeah,
Yeah, different size wires, and it's just kind of that copper's amplifying everything, so
yeah,
it definitely recharges.
yeah, got that battery pack going. So,
Then I've charged that tree with good energy.
mm-hmm, very cool.
All right, so let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up then. Put a bow on it.
Okay, a pretty one. All right, thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of Psychic Bent. We hope you enjoyed it. Hey, Kim, you want to give a little shout out to the countries that are listening to our podcast?
Sure, sure.
It was very exciting to find out how many different countries are there?
We have 32 countries that have listened to the podcast in one form or another. So exciting when I see that.
That's a lot of countries.
It is a lot of countries. All right, so we've had listeners from the United States, of course, Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, China, South Africa, Slovenia, Russia, Poland, New Zealand, Sweden, Ireland, Germany, Philippines, Malawi, India, Guatemala, Singapore, Turkey, Suriname, United Arab Emirates, Peru, Pakistan, Netherlands, Norway, Finland, Isle of Man, Morocco, Brazil, Austria, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Hi, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Hi, thank you so much for listening. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really neat.
So if you're listening to this episode from one of those countries, pop in a little comment and say hi.
Exactly. Whether it's on
Yeah.
YouTube or our Facebook page at PsychicBent Podcast, on YouTube at PsychicBent. You can reach us by email at psychicbent1@gmail.com.
Well, thanks, listeners. Bye.
Bye. May your light shine bright. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.